and welcome to another segment of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. Friends, in this segment, we bring those guests who influence our lives. This includes elected officials, policymakers, heads of major organizations, and other dignitaries. It is my sincere hope that the knowledge brought in by these guests will help our community. Today, we have such guest who is a chairman of Nassau County Democratic Party, Jay Jacobs. Jay was also a chairman of New York State Democratic Party, and I'm sure that you will learn a lot from his interview. Let's meet Chairman Jacobs. Chairman, welcome to the show, sir. Thank you for taking time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Much.
Great.
Yeah. So, Chairman, you were never been a candidate for any election up to now, and you're just a behind-the-scene person. How did you become a party leader? How did you become, and what happened? I mean, how did you be here where you are now?
Well, I had interest in running at one time, and I met through a friend. I met the then chairman of the Nassau County Democratic Committee, Steve Sabbath. Okay. I agreed to help him build the party. Mm-hmm. He and I had a parting of the ways, if you will, over the direction of the party. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I ended up running against him for chairman. I never thought that was a job I would want, but their party broke apart into the establishment and the reform. I led the reform movement. Then I ended up supporting, years later, Tom Suozzi. He and I became close friends. He needed somebody to chair the party, and the party was looking for new leadership, and I was elected.
In 2001, right?
That was 2001.
2001.
Right.
And after you became a chairman, I mean, there are a lot of successes to the Democratic Party, including 4-time legislative majority, and county executive, and controller, and DA, and I mean, a lot of different. So, what is your magic?
Well, there's no magic. Number one, politics is a cyclical business. Joe Mondello taught me that in the first time I ever met him. Okay. So, and he's right. So there are cycles in politics. Mm-hmm. And if you catch the wave and you do a good job, you have wins. And there are years that the wave is against you. No matter how good a job you do, you don't. Mm-hmm. But I think that if there is anything that you need to do, mm-hmm. it's keeping the party unified, listening to people, reaching out, trying to find good candidates to run, people who will present well to the public and serve well if elected, and then trying to build an organization that would support all of that by finding volunteers and encouraging people to participate in the political process.
So the main function of as a party chairman is selecting candidates, raising money.
I'd say it's selecting candidates, certainly getting the resources, the money and the troops mm-hmm. to mount campaigns. Mm-hmm. I think another big part of it is guiding candidates and guiding elected officials on the political aspects of the various governmental issues. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a part of a party chairman to get involved in government per se, mm-hmm. but I do think it's important to let your party know from your experience and your polling and other things that come your way and information, what the public is thinking and how things will impact the next election and public support. Mm-hmm. Because the foundation of government is public support.
Mm-hmm. Now you said it's a cyclic business, right? But then you had a lot of success from 2001 to all the way to 2009.
Right.
So that's a long cycle.
Yes.
Is that true or not?
Well, no, that's true.
Normal cycle is not that long.
Well, realize what happened. In 1999, right. we had the first Democratic majority in the legislature. Right. Why? Because the Republicans had done such a bad job, mm-hmm. and it was in the newspapers, on TV, people were angry, Galata was failing, the legislature was up, they threw out the Republican majority, and we got a Democratic majority. 2 years later came Tom Suozzi, took over as the county executive. After that, it was a very contentious couple of years holding that legislature, if you remember, mm-hmm. but the Democrats continued to make good progress. Mm-hmm. 2009, the economy had taken a terrible hit in 2008. Right. Public was upset. Mm-hmm. The support that they had given the Democrats nationwide mm-hmm. Was dissipating in 2009. Across the country, we saw a lot of setbacks for the Democrats. 2010, of course, terrible setbacks, lost the Congress, And, we feel that locally. So that was the change in the tide. And now we'll see if it's turning back.
So like when first time Tom Suozzi ran as a county executive, right? You were not a party chairman, were you?
No, when he ran in the primary, I wasn't. But right after the primary, I was elected party chairman. It happened to have been that the election of the chairman corresponds to a period of about 30 days after the primary.
Oh, okay.
So I was the chairman when he was first elected.
Oh, okay. First elected, but
first elected as county executive.
Right, because he won against all odds, rather.
Right, he ran against
Tom DiNapoli.
Well, in the primary, yes.
In the primary, right. So, selection of a candidate is your major responsibility, as I see, right? How do you select a candidate? What goes into that? Except presentable person or has a good credential. I mean, that obviously, obvious. But is there anything else that?
Well, I'm looking for someone whose word I can trust. If I can trust their word, I guess the public can. And so integrity is very important. Presentability is very important. They've got to be able to articulate a position. I look to hear where they stand on issues. I want a candidate who is going to support the basic democratic principles and values. I'm not looking for someone who may look good, sound good, want the job, but not support our principles. I can't bring that to the Democratic Party in good conscience. Then I need somebody who's willing to and able to do the hard work. And among the things they have to do is build support for themselves as well and raise money. And I always tell people, I'm not going to be the first dollar in. I will support you with party money, but you have to get out there and show us that you're serious and capable and you have support and you can raise money. And if they can do that and demonstrate that, and they've got all of the other component parts, then we'll be supportive of them.
Okay, so raising money is also a big issue, I guess. That's like one of the major components.
Well, let's face it.
Without that, nothing happens.
That's right. Let's face it. You can have John Kennedy can come back, the best candidate you can imagine.
Right.
And if he doesn't have the money to get on television,
there's nothing
it's like whispering in the wind, and no one's going to hear you. You've got to have the resources. You've got to be able to inspire people. And remember something else. Money has its pluses and minuses in politics. But the ability to raise money demonstrates two things. One, your ability to do something really tough in the democratic process. Asking people for money is not easy.
It's not easy.
Right.
Yes.
And a lot of people procrastinate and don't do it, and they're not willing to do it. If you're not willing to do that, in this process of governing and the difficulties you have there, you probably don't have what it takes. But number two, it also demonstrates that you've got some measure of broader support of people who believe in you and are willing to invest in your future.
Right.
And if you can't ask someone to invest in your future, that's a problem on the first level. And if nobody will, if you do ask, that's another problem, right?
Well, you just said that it's not easy to ask money to anybody, right? But you are the most successful raiser of money, fundraisers in the Democratic Party. How did you do that?
Well, I learned a trick.
This is something we can learn.
Yeah, I learned a couple of tricks.
Okay.
And there are a couple of tricks.
Okay.
The first trick, which is really no trick, I learned from somebody who I once called up before I got into politics, asking them for a donation for a charitable endeavor, a philanthropic endeavor I was involved in. I wanted to send inner city kids to not-for-profit camps. I needed to raise a lot of money. So I called up one of our, I'm in the camp business, one of our vendors. And I was very tentative, and I was very apologetic, and I was embarrassed almost to be asking him for money. And he stopped me, and he said, look, Jay, if you want to ask somebody for money, and you want them to believe in what you've got to ask them for well enough to give you good money, then you have to believe in it first. Because if you don't believe in it, you can't make them believe in it.
Right.
So first thing, before you ask anybody for money, for whatever it is, believe it in your heart. And you know what you do? You believe it to a point where whether they give it to you or not, you have every right to ask them, and you should be asking them. And that's how I go into those conversations. Second thing is I have to remember and be comfortable with that in the process of asking for money,
Right.
I get more rejections now than I ever did in high school. And those weren't such good years for me when it didn't have to do with money, if you know what I mean. So you got to be comfortable with getting rejection. And then the third thing, which is the trick, is this. It's all about doing one thing, and you have to do one thing. Just pick up the phone. You know, you have the phone sitting there, and you just don't want to make those calls. You hate it, right?
Yep.
Pick up the phone and dial. And when you're done with that call,
Next one.
phone again, and just keep going. Just keep going, right?
You know, I had a conversation, similar conversation with one another person. He's a very good attorney, Bob Macmillan, right? And I told him that, listen, Bob, I know a lot of people, but why am I not asking any business? Getting any business from them? And the one thing he told me, I still remember, is he said, "Did you ask them?" I said, "No." I said, "That's your problem."
You have to be specific.
You have to be specific.
You have to ask, and you have to ask for a specific amount by a specific time,
Right.
and be direct and straight up. And then the last thing I will say is I make a competition with myself. This is almost like I make it into a game as to how much I can raise today and tomorrow. But I have to tell you something. When I'm raising money for the Democratic Party,
Right.
or if I have and I do it also for charities, the Clinton Foundation, as an example, is one I love.
Okay.
And if I do something, I start out feeling they should give me money for these things because we're going to do great things with that money. Whether it's on the philanthropic end, something I believe in, or on the political end. Because I really believe that when you elect Democrats,
Right.
we're going to do great things for people and the individuals who contribute.
Right. I think that's a major thing, that you got to believe in what you do.
Right.
And without that, nothing happens. You should have your heart in it.
That's right.
Basically, right? So that's how you became the most successful fundraiser in Democratic Party's history in Nassau County.
As chair, I suspect.
As a
Yes.
chair.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And obviously, you have to lead also to your people. That's also very important. Leadership is the key, I guess. You cannot pick up all the phone yourself.
Right.
Obviously, but you got to direct your people.
Right, and I've got a great team. That's the other thing. I learned that from business. If you put together a great team of people
Right.
that you can count on, and that you're loyal to, and they're loyal to you, well, you got it made.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So Nassau County, obviously, Democratic Party, and then you became also a state Democratic Party leader, chairman, right?
That's right.
So how was it different? You were having two hats at a time on top of your other thing. So I'm going to ask you that question also, that how do you balance your life? You have a personal, I know that you have a wife and two daughters, and you have your personal business, which is camping business, and you do a lot of camping business, and mostly it's a summer business, right?
Well, no, we operate all year. I have a full office going all year long.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I've got to run a school during the,
So how do you manage all this time?
Well, again, it goes back to people. I have on my desk, you walk into my office, you will see on my desk, on the mantle above the fireplace in my office, all around, and at my home the same, and in my home up at camp as well, a very large collection of owls. I have owls everywhere. People come, all different types of owls. In fact, people who know me, if they want to bring a gift from someplace, they'll get me a little owl and they'll tell me, and I'll remember that they gave me. And on top of which, if somebody comes into my office and to work with me or something, I feel they're really very good, I'll give them an owl. And why an owl? Because owls remind me of my biggest problem in business and politics. Who's going to get it done? Right. Who's going to help get me the votes we need in that district? Who's going to run the school program? Who's going to do this? I call the people that I work with that are quality and can-do people who get it done, my owls. And so somebody that works with me, if I really think they did a great job, I'll pick up an owl, I'll give it to them. Somebody comes in with a great idea, terrific, they always say, Jay, what we should do? We should be doing this, and this and that, we shouldn't, fine, I'll take my big owl that I got, and I'll put it fine, that's great. Who's going to get it done? All right? So if you focus on the owls, you can get a tremendous amount done. You've got to find the right people, train the right people, keep the right people, and continue to reward them and motivate them. And then you've got yourself the way to get those things done.
I guess team is more important.
Absolutely.
So in the state also, like when you became a chairman of the State Democratic Party, was that more work? Obviously it's more work, right? Because statewide. And you still depended on the same people, or you had a different team of people?
Well, I had some of the same people. Steve Glass, who's my chief of staff at the county level, was my chief of staff on the state level. We had a larger group of people in the office of the state party to some degree. But as I always say, the difference in the jobs is this. In the state party, as the state party chair, you have lots of prestige, very little power. In the county party, you have no prestige, but some degree of power. You know, so it's a little different. You can get things done in your county because remember, on the state level, state chair isn't really picking the candidates. And you know, it's a different process on the state. What I found myself doing as the state chair was navigating between different power groups in the Democratic Party, in government, Democratic government throughout the state. But on a prestige level, they would want me to go all over upstate New York to speak and represent the Democratic Party. And, you know, I was actually dumbfounded to find that people were actually happy to hear me. You know, and I would come to a place in a wonderful county in some of the most beautiful places in upstate New York, and people were actually glad to see me. And that surprised me a bit. Not that I didn't think they should, but I didn't think, you know, okay, so I'm the state chair. All right, what does that mean? So lots of people have done a lot.
So state, you know, state party does not decide the candidates? I mean, how does they decide?
Well, because it's too big. The state party does nominate. Or designate a candidate. But remember, when a state party chair is most effective is when there is a battle brewing and a problem. So, when, for instance, Kirsten Gillibrand first was appointed a senator. And she was going to be up for her first election coming up. Her polls weren't great. Poll numbers weren't great because she was new. And I was telling the press would call all the time. I'd say, wait a minute, give her some time. That's what a campaign is about. People don't know her yet. And you had a lot of talk about primaries and different individuals who wanted to primary her. My job as state chair was to try to coalesce the support around Kirsten. And that's what I did. And that involved building support amongst the various interest groups within the Democratic Party, county chairs and others, and also talking to some of those folks who wanted to run the primaries and trying to dissuade them from that ambition. So there, you know, I had some importance. Same thing, trying to navigate and avoid a primary. David Patterson was our governor. Andrew Cuomo had an interest in running for governor. He was the Attorney General. And we had the potential of a looming primary, which would not have been good for our party. And I had to try to work that. And did work that. And we had success at avoiding that. Then you have, of course, the Attorney General race. You had 5 candidates. Well, there was no getting out of that. You know, I couldn't, there was no incumbent.
So it was a wide open seat, so everybody wanted to try it.
Exactly, and the state party has no ability per se, appropriately, to you know, to work that out. Now you can, through the state convention process, pressure certain candidates because you need a certain percentage of the vote in the state convention in order to avoid petitioning to get on a ballot for a primary. But my view of it was at the time, and the Attorney General, Andrew Cuomo's view as well, was that we better have a more open process and allow them, you know, more people to compete. And that's what we did. Made it a fair process.
So, you know, state Democratic Party does not raise money.
Well, it can, and sometimes it does. But, you know, if you have a governor,
people, I guess.
Well, if you have a governor and he wants a strong state party, you know, a governor can drive that fundraising. And the state party can support can support candidates. But remember, when I was the state party chair, you had a governor who was weaker at the time, Governor Patterson, under the threat of a primary from the Attorney General. Fundraising was very hard. Under that circumstance, fundraising was very hard. Once we had a new governor, Andrew Cuomo, he was building back his coffers, so you had to wait. And then, of course, you know, I left office in June, and I trust that they'll build a party. You know, now with the new, they replaced my position with 2 co-state chairs, so that's what they did.
Downstate and upstate.
Well, I think actually it worked that way. Yes, it did work out that way.
That's what they know.
2 really very good people that I like a lot.
Yeah, Chairman, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
Sure.
Please stay with us. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the show, Interviews That Matter. We are having a conversation with Chairman of the Nassau County Democratic Party, Jay Jacobs. Now, coming to the Nassau County this year, there is a election this year of the county executive and also the legislature, obviously. And, we keep hearing different names that who's going to run against Ed Mangano, who is currently incumbent, obviously, and with a lot of money too. Who do you think is going to run? I mean, several names have come up, but nothing is for sure yet.
Well, I can promise you this. We're here on January the 9th.
Okay.
And I'm telling you that by the end of January, early February, that will have been solidified. There will be a candidate.
Okay.
I believe things are in the works.
Okay.
And I'm comfortable with that. Now, we have, that said, some people who are interested in potentials. Among them, we have a newcomer to politics, Adam Haber, who's Roslyn. He's a businessman. He's been successful on a Wall Street career, retired from Wall Street, young guy. Roslyn School Board has an interest in politics, and I think he's an attractive potential. Then you have Dave Denenberg, who is a legislator from South Shore, Belmont Merrick area, obviously a very potentially strong candidate. You've got John Kamen, the supervisor of North Hempstead, who has not ruled it out yet, and we've been talking about it. He would be a great candidate. And then, I look at what the strongest candidate would be. In my view, the strongest candidate would be Tom Suozzi. I think Tom Suozzi, who has, talked to me almost every day, voicing his frustrations about what's been going on in the county, that he worked so hard to put onto good fiscal footing.
Right.
Listening to the Mangano administration blame him for things, not truthfully, frankly, that they say that he did, but that's how they want to cast it. It's been frustrating for him. He has not spoken out yet. But, he talks to me and he says, well, what we would be doing? We should be doing this and we should be doing that. I said, and you know what? Maybe you should be doing it. And so I'm pushing for that, and we'll see by the end of the month, early part of February, if I'm successful at persuading him to run. And if he runs, I think, in fairness, he should clear the field, and anybody who primaries him, well, that's a big mistake, but, he'll dispatch that pretty quickly.
I have a feeling that he will run again, because that's what I hear anyway.
Okay.
That he will run again, and, he's got some good funds available, and he is a good fundraiser also.
Right. Well, if you want him to run, call him and tell him to run. Help me out.
I don't have his number, so I can't call him. Only thing I have his work number. So anyway, but I'm pretty sure the way I'm seeing it, that he is a potential candidate for the county executive. But then again, you have another challenge for the legislative majority, right? And so, what do you think the party's view is on that?
Well, the map that the Republicans presented was, it was such a farce and so outrageous. We know that's not going to be the map. That was, it's a red herring. It's to get you all excited and upset and give away things that you really ought not give away. And our Democratic caucus is sticking very firm. We've been prepared to negotiate and have tried to negotiate with the Republicans on that map for over a year. They are fairly intransigent, very intransigent about it, and ultimately they've got a March 5th deadline. So by March 5th, deadline in the charter, we're going to have a map, and we'll see how it turns out. But the one thing I would caution the Republicans is the Republican State Senate. They did their own map too, and they carved it just the way they wanted. In fact, they added a 63rd seat, probably illegally, but somehow it was allowed. But they got it through. They didn't win the majority in the state Senate.
Right.
Now they fashioned a majority with Democrats,
right.
But they lost a lot of seats, right?
It's not a clear.
So what happens is the voters are very smart. And you can carve districts and think you're going to be clever and cute in New York. But Nassau County, like all of New York, is trending Democratic. We now have 45,000 more registered Democrats in Nassau County than we have Republicans.
Right.
That's up from being dead even in 2009.
Right.
You have more people, the most people are registering as Democrat. You have more people registering as blanks than are registering as Republicans. So the Republican brand in Nassau County is sinking like lead. So my advice to Republicans is to begin to be a bit more moderate and centrist. Work with Democrats, you'll go a lot farther. But if you tilt as you have been to that Tea Party radical right-wing group that people just don't like nationwide, statewide, they don't like it countywide either, you're writing your own ticket to doom. So go ahead.
So now, right now it's 10-9, right? So which one race that you think in this year's election that you will be focusing on?
Well, it's hard to say until that map is finished. Raj, until the map is firmed up, and then we can weigh what the probabilities are based upon seeing who's in the district, not just the legislator, but the people, the voters. Then we can make that decision. But I'm sure there'll be more than one that we'll be contesting.
So in Democratic Party, I mean, obviously, you said that, state Democratic Party, more prestige, less power. Here, more power, less prestige. So in state, the way I'm assuming that you don't have as many appointments, because basically, like appointments are the key, right? When, Democrats come into power, obviously appointments are there, which is the, kind of important, right? So in Nassau County, you have more authority on appointing people at various stages, and then the state level?
Well, let's put it this way. The chairman of the county party, this is not just in Nassau, this is statewide in the party, the two chairs, the Republican and the Democratic chairs, each appoint a commissioner for the Board of Elections.
Okay.
The two commissioners of the Board of Elections divide the payroll exactly in half by state law.
Okay.
So from the get-go, you do have some ability to recommend people for at least that agency and their job. And the reason you want it that way is you want it to ensure fair and balanced elections. You need to make sure it's an even split between the Democrats and Republicans. How it's decided is it's the two parties that get the top number of votes in the gubernatorial election every 4 years. They decide, the chairs of those parties in each county pick the Board of Elections commissioners. So you start with that. There's nothing like that set up statutorily in the state government structure. That's not how the state Board of Elections is decided. All right? So right away you have that. On the other end, in the state, when you have the governor and appointments, and you can make recommendations, and I have made recommendations, and the governor has been kind enough to accept many of those recommendations. In fact, after I left as state chair, and I still make recommendations, and I get some of those accepted, and I appreciate it very much. But a chair makes recommendations. We don't really, other than that commissioner of the Board of Elections, we don't really, make direct appointments. And so you've got to have the relationship with the elected officials who have a loyalty to you to at least look at your recommendations. Now, on the Republican side, when the Republican chairman says to the Republican governmental leader, I want Joe Smith to have a job, and he's to have a job at $65,000, and I don't care what it is, and I want it by Wednesday, that guy isn't a job by Wednesday, or there's hell to pay. I've never operated that way, and Democrats don't operate that way. What I tell our elected officials is this. There will be jobs. I will never recommend somebody for a job that doesn't need to be filled. I'll never recommend somebody that I don't think can actually do the job that needs to be filled. But if I recommend somebody and you interview them and you don't think they can do the job, don't hire them. All right? That's fair. But what I also say is if you have two people, one who's come out of left field for a job or recommended by your neighbor, their son's friend, or whatever it may be, and I've recommended somebody both with the same qualifications and ability, I'd hope you'd give my recommendation some due consideration. Doesn't mean you have to give them the job, but it would be appreciated. But then again, a lot of people apply directly, and that's okay too.
That's okay.
Sure.
So let's talk about your business, camping business route. Can you tell us something more about business? How does it work, and who are because see, our viewers are from South Asia, obviously, right? And everybody has family and kids and everything. So we would really like to see if there is a quality camp that you're running. Tell us something about that.
Sure. In fact, we have children from a diverse set of communities. We have in Glen Cove, North Shore Day Camp and Day School. The day school is through kindergarten, preschoolers. We give tremendous early education from 2.5 years old on up. Children learn a variety of things, different languages. They learn even things like good manners, but they also learn how to count, alphabet, things very early on. And it's a great boost into the educational process. And we draw children from Great Neck and Manhasset and Roslyn, Port Washington, Hicksville, Woodbury, Syosset, the whole north shore of Nassau County, into Queens, frankly, as well.
Okay.
So that's a great program. The summer camp that goes with it, again, same groups of children from the same areas, I should say, come and do all sorts of recreation, but they learn values too. They learn good character traits, integrity, good sportsmanship, in addition to learning the skills in sports and running and fun, having fun and playing. So the summer camp is a great opportunity for them as well. And then we've got our sleepaway camps. You know, I've got a couple of day camps out on the East End, and then we've got 3 sleepaway camps. 2 that are full season, about 7 weeks up in the Catskill Mountains, Pennsylvania. One's in Catskills, one's in Northeast Pennsylvania. And then one that's in the Catskills is just 2 4-week sessions, July and August. And again, children from all over, and we get children in those camps from all over the world. So I've got Timberlake, for instance, which is the camp that I actually run. I've got 2 boys that come from Moscow. I've got a young girl from Angola, a few children from Spain, Italy. You know, we've had children from Korea. So in our camp, 4-week camp, I believe we've got campers coming this year from China. So it's very interesting.
How do they hear about this? I mean, how do you get people from China and Moscow and all that? How do they hear about it?
It's usually word of mouth. Usually we have a lot of business people that are traveling. You know, you have a lot of people from around the world that want to have their children immersed in the English language, sometimes American culture. And that's a great, you know, a way to do that. And they like to be able to interact with children from other cultures as well. And our, you know, American children love that. You know, the American children, they have a child comes from another culture, they just love it. So it's and we embrace that and try to encourage that, because, you know, some of this world is getting a lot smaller. So it's a good thing for children to get used to those kinds of environments.
So what is the age group of these children?
Well, as I said, the day camp and the day school, which are in Glen Cove, 2.5 is the youngest, right? And the day school goes through kindergarten, right? And the day camp goes all the way up through 8th, 9th grade.
Okay.
The sleepaway camps in upstate New York and Pennsylvania, they start about 7 years old, really going into 3rd grade.
Okay.
All right? And they go all the way to 16.5, going into 11th grade. After that, they may get the chance to work for us. So
have different groups and divided into different
activities.
Right. And all that.
That's right. There's a lot of great activities, swimming and, you know, in the sleepaway camps, boating, swimming, of course, in the pools at the day camp, and then, you know, all the various sports, you know, lifetime sports like tennis and golf, as well as team sports.
So people can go on your website and find out more about it?
Sure can.
What is that website?
The website is camptlc.com, or you go to timberlakecamp.com, northshoredaycamp.com. That gets you right on there.
Oh, okay. Good to know, because, you know, I mean, our also community is looking for always good quality camps where children can learn. You know, obviously we are, you know, our community is a little conservative in sleepover camp. You know, that I can tell you upfront, because, you know, but other than that, you know, young children camp definitely makes sense for a lot of people.
Terrific.
In our community, right? So, you know, as I said, that our viewers is all from South Asia, right? And there's a large population in the Nassau County of South Asians, especially in town of North Hempstead. And many, you know, I mean, the purpose of this show is really to educate our people, educate our community people, and encourage them to get involved in the political process of this country, and, you know, kind of do something, you know, like. So, what is your advice to them, to the viewers, that what they should be doing in order to get involved and, you know, one day get elected somewhere? I mean,
right. Well, you know, and we have put forward candidates, South Asian candidates, for office in the Democratic Party.
Okay.
And I would say it's very important to get involved. It's you have to vote at a minimum. Okay. There is no excuse not to vote. And what I find upsetting is that there are so many people who have been born in this country, and their parents were born in this country, and maybe their parents before them were born in this country, and they just don't feel an interest and necessity to vote. They take it for granted. But people who come from other parts of the globe understand how important it is to have a vibrant democracy, and the only way you have that is if people vote. But also getting involved in our county committee. We're always looking to have people in our county committee. County committee is the body that actually does nominate these candidates.
Okay.
Getting involved on the town level, getting involved on the county level, and we look forward to that. So I urge them to contact me, contact the party, tell us your interest. If you're interested in running for office, we want to cultivate that. We want to encourage that. The Democratic Party understands that this country's changing, and it's becoming more and more diverse. And I'm going to honor a former president. I talk about this very often. Today happens to be the 100th birthday of former President Richard Nixon.
Wow.
And the reason I mention him is because he said something very interesting, which I think is important, particularly when we talk to communities of people who are living here now but have come from somewhere else. And what he said, and I'll paraphrase it, which was so true. He said, you know, you can move to Germany, but you'll never become German. You can move to France, but you'll never become a Frenchman. You can move to Japan, you'll never become Japanese. But you move to the United States, and in a short course of time, you become an American. And we're all Americans, and we all have to participate in this process. I think what he said was 100% correct. And so today on his 100th birthday, we'll remember that.
Wow, wow. And, you know, I mean, I wanted to ask you, personal question.
Sure.
Personal question is that, you know, you have two daughters, Jackie and Jessica, right? So, and you and your wife had a pact that if the daughters comes, it will be on your name. You start with you, J, and if it is son, then it's on M.
No, what happened there, I'll tell you this. The truth of it is this. No. Before our kids were ever born, for some reason, my wife and I we met at camp.
Okay.
And she was a counselor. And for some reason, she had this camper whose name was Jessica, and she just loved the name Jessica.
Okay.
So she said to me, even, you know, we were just married, if we have a daughter, it's got to be Jessica.
Okay.
So I said, well, if it's Jessica, and I'll go with that,
okay,
then we just have to make it an S as a middle name, because mine is JSJ.
Right.
So that became JSJ. So Jessica, my first, was a girl, Jessica, and we made it, I think, Susan. And so that was what it was. Okay. The second one comes, I wanted Victoria.
Okay.
Because my grandmother was Viola. I didn't want Viola, and I wanted to remember my grandmother. My wife didn't care for Victoria.
Okay.
But she liked Jacqueline Kennedy. So she came up with Jacqueline. So I said, well, okay, but it's got to be S in the middle, so they're all JSJs, except for poor Mindy, who's got an M.
Okay, because I thought that maybe you had a pact.
No, that was the only thing, and really I was almost as innocent as you could be in making that happen.
Right, yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. I mean, we are running out of time now, and if you have any final words for our viewership,
Well, I would just simply say, first of all, I appreciate you having me on.
Right.
I think we have to get the South Asian community much more engaged.
Right.
I think that, here we are, it's 2013.
Right.
And we've moved this country so far, and our community so far. Right. I'm looking to what are we going to be doing in 2023 and 2033. And this community is going to maintain its unique culture as other communities like it and that came before them are going to maintain theirs too. But they're going to be an essential part of the American story and the American dream. And only by jumping in and embracing that are you going to be able to accomplish that in short order. So do it. We want you. And the Democratic Party wants you.
Thank you. This is what I say, like our community is very successful individually, but, like we have to come up with collectively now and get more involved in the political process of United States. So we can be even more, we can be better off basically, at the end of the day.
And the country will be better off.
The country will be better off too.
Right.
Right, yeah. Yep, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, you can email me at rajamitv@gmail.com. Again, that's rajamitv@gmail.com. If you want to watch our earlier shows, you can go on YouTube on Infosys International channel. That's www.youtube.com/Infosys International. Until next time, see you. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.